Welcome to HB Tuners Subaru Training Part 32. In this training tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at working with some miscellaneous features we haven't covered yet in our training course. This is going to be things like our launch control, our no-lift shift, as well as our DTC check engine light capabilities we have in our software programming. We're going to have a lot to cover. Let's jump in so we can check this out. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at working with some miscellaneous programming within our Subaru applications. This is going to be things that we haven't covered or touched on yet within our training tutorials in our training course. Let's jump in and take a look at a sample calibration file so we can look at our launch control and no lift shift programming that's found only in the HBT custom patch option. Up at the top here, we find the file that we're going to be working with here in this particular tutorial. This is the HBT custom features applied file. We can find that in our HBT Subaru course folder, sample calibration file subfolder, and then select this particular file. This has the HBT custom patch option applied to it already, so it's ready to go as soon as you open it up to follow along with what we're going to be covering in this training tutorial. So first thing I want to do is jump in here to our engine option. That's going to allow us to jump into general, and this is where we take a look at our first portion of our video here under launch control and no lift shift. These are features that are not found in the Subaru factory programming. A launch control, taking a look at our first example here, is going to allow us to have a stationary rev limiter that's going to allow us to have consistent and repeatable launches. Now, in addition to having just the RPM being essentially a lower or secondary rev limiter to hold this to launch consistently, we're able to use this to generate boost pressure to be able to gain more boost off the line and launch harder. Now, taking a look at how we program this is relatively straightforward. We can go up to the top here. If we want to turn this feature on, we're going to go to launch control on off, go from disable to enable. That's going to arm this particular feature. Now, we have a couple of different things that we need to program and to account for in order to make this work. We have our launch control minimum throttle. This means that we have to be above this throttle position from the electric pedal in the car, so the actual accelerator pedal position that we put our foot on in the car. We have to be above 45% throttle for the launch control to engage. That's pretty low thresholds for it to engage, so that's not going to be a problem. We don't have it much lower in terms of that electronic pedal movement. If we trip it too low, or we have it too low, we could trip it if we're trying to just take off from a stop. We want to have the throttle being relatively high, so 45-50% throttle angle is a reasonable value here. The next parameter is going to be our launch control max vehicle speed threshold. This is going to allow us to engage the launch control only when we're essentially stopped or barely moving our vehicle. We don't want this turning on when we're driving because it can apply a secondary lower rev limit, which can cause drivability problems. So looking at this, 3 miles per hour is going to be sufficient. We'll find that as soon as we launch the car, the vehicle speed sensor is going to read above 3 miles per hour and the launch control will turn off when we go to launch. So we don't typically need to go and change or adjust our max VS parameter or threshold here. The next parameters are going to be the actual cut RPM we want our rev limiter to be at. We can see here it's set at 4,000 as the default and 3,950 for it to come back in and to restore the cut. We usually want to have these RPM spread between our actual cut value and the restore value where it turns on the fuel injectors again. This is going to be a fuel cut. We want to have them pretty close to each other so the cut is going to be nice and crisp. If we have these too far apart from each other in terms of the RPM, so the cut and the recover, that can make a slower type rev limiting function and just not going to be as smooth. So 50 RPM works pretty well here. So if you are going to be changing your initial RPM, your actual cut RPM, if you raise this up to something like 5,000, make sure that you set your restore here to something like 4950. Keep them about 50 RPM apart. Now the next feature here is going to be, the next programming feature here is going to be our launch control button RPM delta. What this is going to do, the way that we're programming and working with this, if we have it set at 5,000 and we want to go and increase our RPM for the launch, so 5,000 let's say is too low for the particular car you're working with, and you want to be able to raise it up and you don't want to have to drag your laptop out, you can use the cruise control plus and minus buttons to be able to increase your RPM target when you're on the launch control. So in order to activate this and work with this, you have to be getting on the launch control. Let's say it's at 5,000 and you want it higher. You'd use your cruise control plus button. Every time you hit the plus button, it will increment in a value of 100 RPM. So instead of being at 5,000, it'll go to 5,100. If you hit the button again, it would go to 50. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here. And you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.